So just to kind of cover anybody who's new to Viva, actually do me a favor, give me a reaction from your reaction button. If you're new to Viva completely, give me like a like or a heart or any of the emojis. We do have some people new to Viva. So we actually have another event in 2 days. So I'll share the link here before we end. Remind me in case I forget. But we do have we have announcements, new product announcements, and we do an annual report on our work trend index. So we'll be reporting on that in 2 days' time. So this is just kind of a little background on Microsoft Viva and employee experience. So you can kind of see some of the statistics here. Like I'm a perfect example of this. I am motivated to come into the office for my coworkers. I used to be a traveling consultant, so I love being with my colleagues and my customers. And so, the pandemic, hybrid, remote work has changed the dynamics of how and when we go into the office, but many of us still find tremendous value in the office environment for that connection with our colleagues. From the insight perspective, many think that their company doesn't solicit feedback often enough, and probably tied to that, acting on that feedback. Purpose, 81% of employees say it's important that their managers prioritize their workload. A lot of us has taken on additional responsibilities throughout the pandemic, throughout work changes. And so, understanding the relative priority of those things, super important, just really understanding why you're there, what you're supposed to be doing. And then last, growth. And once again, like I'm just feeling these from a personal perspective, like learning and development, super important to over 3/4 of us. So we would stay with our employers longer if we have learning and development support. I can positively say here at Microsoft, we have lots of great opportunities for learning, for training, and career development. And, it's one of the things that keeps me here and keeps me really with any employer, is to know that I can continue to grow my skills. And I think that probably resonates with you as well. And also feel free to react if these things connect with you as well. So if we look at Microsoft Viva or employee experience platform, these are kind of like our pillars or different categories of Viva apps. And so today we're talking about Viva Engage, so that would fall under culture and communications. You can see that on the right side of the slide. So we can share links to the Microsoft Viva product information in the chat later, but we're going to focus on culture and communications and specifically on Viva Engage today. We also have another Customer Hub event, a 4-week series starting next week on Viva Connections. So if that's of interest and you haven't signed up, we can maybe share directions for doing that as well at the end. And then once again, just to kind of give you where we are, Viva has more apps than we did when we launched a 1.5 years ago. So just to kind of help you understand, we're sitting here under the connection pillar of Viva. So it's keeping everyone informed, included and expired, and you can see Viva Amplify will be joining that connection pillar later this year. And absolutely, we will be sharing the slides, so you do not need to worry about taking notes. You'll have the recording as well as the slide deck in the Modern Work Superheroes community. So Viva Engage is really meant connect employees across the organization and really allows everybody to contribute and express themselves. If you've used, actually, I got to go back to the poll. One moment, please. All right, so many of you have no Yammer or Viva Engage, so I'll spend a little bit more time here. So there's a few parts of Yammer or Viva Engage, and I guess for any clarity, for those that may not be familiar with the history of the product, up until, I guess, probably last fall, we actually renamed the Yammer Communities app in Microsoft Teams Viva Engage. And then 2 months ago, we announced that we will eventually, over the next few months, everything will be rebranded. So if you've used Yammer in the past, if you're familiar with Yammer, it will now be Viva Engage everywhere. So your mobile app, your desktop app, the web browser experience, and then the app in Teams will all be called Viva Engage by the end of this year. And I think it's targeted for sometime maybe September, October for all of that rebranding to be done. So when we say Yammer or Viva Engage, those things are exactly the same thing. Just product evolution, and it takes us a little time to get all of those user experiences updated. And so when I'm talking about Viva Engage, I'm talking to everything that is Viva Engage and everything you may have known as Yammer. One of the biggest parts of Yammer is the communities. So it's really a place for employees to connect and express themselves. It gives leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts on the organization's mission, align people, and really, address, provide that culture experience in a digital or virtual format at scale. And then to me, like one of the biggest pieces of value that you're going to get out of Viva Engage is really knowledge and sharing of ideas, asking questions and getting them answered from your experts in the organization. And so it's a great way to connect with people that are interested in things that you are, work you're doing. I will just say, working on Microsoft Viva at Microsoft, as you might imagine, there's many, many teams between marketing and engineering, customer success, sales, fast track, partners. So there's many, many different people that are working with Viva every day. So we use Viva Engage every day to ask and answer questions and, get content out there and get people directed in the right place. And also share their, thoughts on the product direction as well. It's a great way, you can kind of see some of the pillars. I won't read them to you, but it's really a great way to strengthen your employee relationships. So employee to employee, from leaders in your organization. And then also it's a great way to have communities around different groups. So for employee resource groups, to support your diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And it's really a way for everybody to share their thoughts in the organization. So it's kind of a different scenario that you would have maybe in person. So you can post and then you can reply and ask questions across your org. So it's one of those unique experiences that you don't have in the real world. Especially at a large organization. If there's 100,000 people, it's difficult to connect with all of them. So this is really a good way to let employees connect with one another. Excuse me, sorry, I'm pausing for a little bit of water. So once again, you can see here, it's you can follow people. So you can follow your colleagues, you can follow your leadership that's in your organization, people that you're interested in their work. And it's kind of the professional experience that you might think about other social media applications. So this is your work one, and it's a great way to share your thoughts. You can share posts, share videos, if you've written white papers, whatever that case is, and actually maintain a personal brand. So communities. So where Yammer started all those years ago, it was about communities. So can be anything. I will say that while most of our communities are work related here at Microsoft, we have some fantastic communities that are not. So we have, for example, Pets of Microsoft, and we have an Xbox gaming group. So it's also a way to inject a little fun into what's normally a very stressful workday. So while you'll find that most of them are directly work related, it's also a great way to create some fun at work. So when people are on their lunch break or morning time getting started, they can have a little break from the stress. So once again, being able to ask questions, you can mark the best answers so that when people come back and look at that question later because they searched for it, they know that, hey, this was the best answer, this is the best guidance that I have. And this is obviously done by a community moderator. You can share files, photos, and videos with your community. It's, it mentions as a front door. So it's really that place to send people so that everybody is having the conversation in the same place. Asking for feedback. So kind of getting crowdsourcing, and we see this all the time in asking questions like, how would you solve this question with a customer? So in our modern work customer success organization, we see all the time different people coming in saying, hey, I have this challenge with my customer. What's the best way to do this? And you'll see really quick responses and really good guidance coming out of that. And then once again, marking those best answers so that people can continue to get that best answer later. And then obviously, like other social media that you would have outside the workplace, we have, the mentioning capability so that when we ask questions or when we're reading posts and we know somebody that will have that right answer, we can mention them and tag them essentially in the post so that they can follow up and respond with their guidance. Really, really valuable. So one of the things that's not an official part of today's presentation, but I do like to cover is it's kind of that modernization of communication. So if we think about maybe some legacy experiences, I've been working in technology for 30 years and, for the bulk of that 30 years, it's been very email heavy. And so this is a great way for key announcements, key communications, to have a little bit more vibrancy using not only images and videos, but also having polls and questions and praise, all different sorts of interactive and visual experiences. And these we know from our data that they always have a better rate of reading and acting on. So they have a higher level of employee engagement when we have these additional capabilities. You can also feature conversations to get up to 10 times the engagement of other posts. So if you're familiar with maybe boosted news in SharePoint, featuring conversations here is going to have that same sort of functionality for you. And then important to many communications leaders is you do have that ability to measure engagement using your insights to understand how many people are being reached with your communications. So really valuable. And you can kind of see our data here shows that it's 4.5 times faster than email. And I will say that it's certainly true for me. I've actually set Viva Engage notifications to come to me in Teams only to clean out my inbox. Previously, Yammer or Viva Engage notifications would come to me in email. I turn that off. I now have everything pinging me in Teams with my Teams notifications so that I'm much more likely to click on that immediately if it's something of interest or relevance to my job role and what I work on. And so that's anybody who's trying to communicate. Obviously, it's not helpful if people aren't reading it. And so from the Teams perspective, if your organization is using Teams for your day-to-day collaboration, it's an easy way to get those notifications kind of in the flow of work and not having to go to a separate website or having to get that kind of cluttering up your inbox. It's a really nice experience. So last fall, we announced a new capability called Storyline. And I will compare it to the social media option of your Facebook feed. So it's your work version of that. So you're able to share videos and content and posts essentially. That would be your thoughts on things you're working on at work. Share video. Maybe you had a charity event that you want to share a video from, but whatever content you have. And previously, you didn't have that option in Yammer. And so everything was within the context of a community. So as of last fall, we now have the opportunity to have our own personal storyline. So you can follow each other just like you would in the consumer space, only it's in the workspace. And so you can follow your leaders, you can follow other people that you work with and see what they're working on, see what they're sharing. So once again, there's things that we discover every day that we wouldn't necessarily know about without this sort of solution in place. So you can see here, this is kind of Lydia's storyline here. So it's just your way to share as an employee. And then you'll have storyline posts in your feeds using an algorithm that's part of the product. And then obviously priority to the people that you're connected to, the communities that you're part of, and the ones that you're following. And so it's really a great way to, have your personal brand. It's a great way to grow your personal network and really just amplify your impact. So there's going to be times when you want to post in communities, and there's going to be times that it's more appropriate to post on your own storyline. So it's great to have those options. So stories are the video element of your storyline. So I think they're up to, and I think Margot can keep me honest here, I think it's 3 minutes, but it might be shorter than that. So she can correct me on the timing, but they're meant to be short videos, but you can actually upload a video or record directly from Viva Engage, a short video to share with others in your organization. You can see here it's being used to have people come get their flu shots, but could be anything. Could be you had a team meeting, could have a company event, could be that you're at a conference, all sorts of possibilities there. But we all know that people have different preferences for words, pictures, and videos. This is a great way for sharing quick videos to provide updates to people. We actually have a leader in our organization on the OneDrive SharePoint space. He does his Friday videos that lets everybody know what the priorities are for that organization. Super helpful, 5 minutes. You can watch it while you're having your coffee. Most importantly here is just kind of giving everybody a voice. So much like the consumer equivalents of social media, it's a way for you to share information. And you can share your work, you can share things that you're doing as a frontline worker in the field, using your mobile device to capture photos and videos. As I mentioned before, following people that are relevant to you, the leaders, that impact your day-to-day life, the ones you're interested in, and then, grow your personal network. And as somebody who works on the global team for a global organization, really helpful because ultimately we all work with specific customers. We work with each of you. And so, knowing people across the globe is really helpful because we'll be like, oh, I know this person I can reach out to. And I may know them from, Customer Hub. I might know them from Viva Engage networks. I might know them from other teams, but that network is really critical to many of us that are working in large organizations, especially ones that span multiple countries and languages and time zones. So for the storylines and the stories, just really some more ideas here about how you would use it. Having how-to tips via screen recordings. I think at our organization, we call them snackables. And they're really meant to be like little snacks of content. So they're not time consuming. So, kind of how-to tips on how to use different maybe applications at work or how to perform common job tasks. Really simple, quick, and easy videos. You could post reminders about events. Maybe you have a charity drive coming up. It could be even something as simple as, hey, it's benefits enrollment time of the year, to put that out there as well. And then behind the scenes are always, of interest to people. If you're opening a new office location, helping people understand maybe what's going on in locations that they're not part of. So we're kind of moving from the communities and the storylines into what I would call more of a knowledge management space. And so we have a new capability called Answers in Viva. I will mention here that we're getting into the space where some of the capabilities are going to be included with your Microsoft 365 license, and some of them will require a premium license. And so licensing and recording, so I'm going to get in trouble, but licensing makes my head hurt a little bit. But absolutely feel free. We can share. We have content in the deck that kind of describes what's included with Microsoft 365 license and what's part of the premium license at the end. But this is kind of the space where part of this is included and part of this would be premium. Just wanted to provide that for transparency. So Answers in Viva is really meant to allow people to have a single place to go to get their questions answered. So if you see at the top on the navigation, we've talked about communities, we talked about the storylines, and now we're getting into answers. And so you can literally go there and you see at the top, it says, what is your question? So as an employee, if you think about new employee onboarding, it's a great way for them to just get, ask their question. And also it's going to suggest questions that have already been asked. So if that question has been asked 50 times, it's going to be suggested and they don't really have to continue posting their question. So it's, a great way to kind of get people into the habit of going there for those answers. And then over time, you're going to build up that kind of inventory or database of questions and answers across the organization. Marking the best answer to reward contributors. So the most important part of any sort of knowledge management system is having your subject matter experts participate and answer and be active in those communities, active in this app to answer those questions. And so part of answers does require the premium license, and I'll share the slide on that towards the end. We're not too far away. So you can assign experts to route questions to the right place. So they can share it to communities, they can tag more people to make sure that those questions get answered. As I mentioned before, you can search through previously asked and answered questions, because many times somebody has already asked that question. And then use topics. So we didn't cover it in detail at the beginning in the interest of time, but Viva Topics is our knowledge management pillar for Microsoft Viva for the employee experience suite. And so this integrates with Viva Topics. And so if you've got the premium licenses, you'll have the full set of answers in Viva, and we call it, I think we refer to it as kind of like Viva Topics Lite or Answers Lite, if you're just using the Microsoft 365 license. And so you can see here, when somebody's asking a question, they're getting a little pop-up box with Viva Topics. And so this healthcare company is suggested as a topic. You'll notice it's also suggesting people. So one of the key things to understand is that it's not just textual content or files or images, it's also people. So as we know across our companies, people are often what we want to find. We want to know who's responsible for this product or who's responsible for this particular project, et cetera. So we'll actually get suggestions for people as well as the content that's out there. So you can kind of see here the experience, posting your question to have experts looped in, adding details. Details are always great. It helps us better understand what you're asking, as well as who we might route it to get that question answered. You can see your related questions. And then if you're using Viva Topics in your organization, is going to suggest topics based on your interest and expertise. And so that's our AI kind of under the hood, keeping track of what you're posting on, what you're answering, what your interests are. And so it'll suggest things to you so you can follow additional topics. And thank you, Margo, for answering some of these questions in the chat. So we're now moving into the last category, which is leadership. So this one is part of the premium experience. So one of the challenges that leaders have had, especially through the pandemic, is having that two-way dialogue, and then also having dialogue based upon the context you're in. So if you're in a larger organization, you might have different groups, different divisions, and you might talk about different things with maybe your frontline workers than you do with your office or knowledge workers. So having the right conversations, the right place can be super important. So our leadership capabilities basically are providing a way to give leaders a voice, and kind of in the context of meeting employees where they are and Viva Engage. And so we'll start with the leader storyline. So just like an employee or anybody in your organization would have a storyline, a leader can have a storyline. So this is where you as a leader can share posts and your thoughts on various matters, work-related matters, initiatives that your company has, DEI. You can make announcements. One of the nice features that you have is the ability to have a delegate post on your behalf. If you have an administrative assistant or somebody that's going to make your post for you, you can do that. And then analytics, once again, to understand who's reading your post and the engagement level there. And so one of the important things to realize, as I mentioned before, is that Viva Engage is pretty much everywhere we're working. So there's an app in Outlook, there's an app in Teams, there's the Yammer, what was called the Yammer experiences, which were mobile experience, desktop experience, and web experience. So you're able to get to these communities, these capabilities in any of these applications. So if you're happy in Outlook, you can do it there. If you like it in Teams, if you want it on your mobile device or your web browser, any of those are going to be the same features and functionality across all of those experiences. So using the insights and the measurements will let you amplify your impact. So basically understanding which posts are engaging employees, which things are kind of being ignored or not engaging, will help you tune your messaging and, you know, share information that your employees and the organization are going to find useful. And then obviously follow your colleagues, follow the other leaders to stay informed and engaged with their efforts and achievements. So, you know, we've in the past, maybe I'm older, but in the past we've used the expression left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So one of the ways to stay connected with maybe other leaders you don't work with every day, follow them, understanding what their priorities are, what they're doing in their orgs. It's a great way to be aware of what everybody is doing across the organization, and also understanding maybe where you can partner together and maybe stay aligned a little bit better. So just really lots of use cases from the leadership perspective. And you can see here a quick view of the leader activity. And so this is what you would see. Leaders you might know, you're going to be suggested people to follow, just like you would in communities to follow, colleagues to follow. You'll also be suggested to follow leaders. And it will be personalized for everybody based upon you know, your role, your activity in Viva Engage, as well as your role in the organization. And so if you look at Leadership Corner, so that's the section that you would be in within Viva Engage. And so this is where you're going to see all of your leaders. You'll see events. If you look on the middle right part of the page, it's a little small, but you see the Ask Me Anything about diversity inclusion. It's going to give you announcements about upcoming AMAs, new events, employee town halls. So you'll see all of those experiences. You can also see campaigns. So if you see there's a giving campaign. So every October, Microsoft, we have our giving campaign. Your organization probably has annual or more frequent charitable initiatives as well. So it's a great way for us to share, hey, our goal as customer success is maybe to donate X amount of money and to volunteer X amount of hours. And so we can actually, this year, for the first time, we'll be able to track that in Viva Engage and use it to kind of see the progress we're making. And we'll be able to share photos as we volunteer and, you know, connect with our communities. So as you can see on the left, a couple of more administrative things. You can define and assign audiences based on teams, departments, your custom criteria. So you can actually have a little influence on who employees are following as leaders. And then once again, back to the analytics, you're going to get better understanding of what topics employees are focused on, sentiment, and really understanding what's top of mind for people. So using Leadership Corner, these are just kind of some top things that you would want to use it for. Sharing weekly updates and videos to your storyline. Once again, really helpful to understand what leaders are doing in your organization, you know, relevant to you as an employee. Providing clarity on strategy and goals. Oftentimes we see a lot of stress and maybe negative sentiment simply because we don't know what's going on and there's maybe a lack of clarity. So by having it out there for everybody to see in the same place, in the same version, in the same message, you know, can remove a lot of that confusion or questioning of what's going on because it's clear and it's out there. Hosting a town hall in your CEO Connection community to basically, you know, give employees a place to come and have ongoing Q&A. And then if you've ever done maybe a Reddit AMA or Ask Me Anything, you know, that's a way to ask questions over text. And so people are able to ask questions, you can moderate them for appropriateness, but it's a really good way to have periodic AMAs with your leaders. And so that way, once again, having that transparency, having that clarity of what are we doing, what are our priorities, you know, how are things changing? And that gives employees a great way to feel connected and really kind of buy into that company mission and, you know, understand the why. I think we have covered most of this. Sorry, we have a lot of slides. We're going to get through them. I'm going to try and be done in 6 minutes, so we have a little bit more time. So you can see here, you can see a section. So this person has their leaders, their follow leaders, and then all leaders. So it's a great way to go. The all leaders will let you go find more people to follow that might be relevant to you. As I mentioned, the campaigns, it's a great way to have that experience of business goals and initiatives. It can be related to maybe you have a product sales goal, or you have an internal, efficiency goal of, we want to do this with reduced cost, or we want to do this manufacturing process faster, or we want to, train people and get them up and running on our new system and by this date. So like anything that you're like really working towards, your campaigns are a great way to kind of give that kind of community to the campaign itself. So you have sponsors and campaign resources so people know what's going on. You can use the hashtag so that they can post about that campaign in any community in Viva Engage, and it's going to actually show up here on the campaign itself. And then you'll actually, once again, back to our topic of analytics, because we like numbers and we like measurements, be able to understand like what's the impact, what's the reach of our campaign activities, and then find the people that are the creators of content for that campaign, maybe to recognize them with some praise later, and then also what the top conversations are that you can highlight post-campaign success to really, see what's getting people the most excited. And so this is kind of a deeper look at a social campaign in Viva Engage. So you have your cover photo to have the brand name, the identity of the campaign. You have your goal tracker, so you can see there's a $10,000 goal, and they're halfway there. And then a space to highlight the executive sponsors supporting the cause. So virtual events. Virtual events in Viva Engage, which is powered by Microsoft Teams, enable you to host DIY or do it yourself, or highly produced virtual events with up to 20,000 people attending. So you can have questions and conversations before, during, and after. You can include auto transcriptions, language, and chat translation. You've got background noise suppression. For organizers, you've got a highly manageable Q&A experience that allows presenters and staff to moderate the flow of the event and reply publicly, privately, or hide questions. And you also have, once again, analytics to understand attendance and engagement. So it's a really great way to have virtual events across the organization and for everybody. And for our team specifically, like it's been super valuable for me to have the language translation and things, because I can attend things not in English and still get the value out of the great work we're doing across the globe. So I mentioned the AMAs before. Oh, sorry, not me to click off. Now I need to click off of it. I mentioned the AMAs before. So you basically have moderated question and answer time, and it's all sitting here in your text chats in Viva Engage. And so it's not a video event. It's just a place you can come and ask questions, and those questions can be moderated as they come in. And then you'll actually basically you can upvote the questions by participants so that you can see the ones that people are most interested in. And then if you were in Viva Engage, you would see all of the upcoming AMAs. And so, maybe it's great if you're having a lot of new hires on a regular basis, maybe have an AMA for them, once a month, but really you can see here, there's career growth and development, new pet policies, really anything that you want to give people the opportunity to get their questions answered and, make them more effective at their jobs, and, just kind of remove those questions and the lack of clarity that they may be struggling with. So we talked about analytics a little bit. So really understanding reach, how many replies you're getting on messages, how many followers, who's viewing your posts, and then the ones that are engaging. And so it's just another way to understand how effective the communications are, and and sometimes how effective they're not. So it's a great way to say, if they're not getting engagement with what I'm posting, it's a great way to look at it and say, maybe I should change the format. Maybe I need to add video, maybe I need to add images, or maybe it's just not of interest, but it's a great way it's a great way to understand whether it's working or not. So you can see statistics specific to your team. You can also measure sentiment to see if it's positive or negative. And this can be super helpful to understand, there's always certain topics that are going to be a little bit more stressful. Maybe you've had a organizational change, a restructuring of different groups and teams. Sometimes, like Microsoft, like other organizations, we've, faced reductions in force, and, obviously that creates stress. So it's a great way to kind of understand what's top of people's mind, and, hopefully see those trends. If they're going in a downward direction, leaders can take action to address those challenges. And then, the nice thing would be hopefully seeing a trending positive, over a period of time as actions are taken to address whatever might be top of mind for the organization or a group within the organization. So you can see here, this is using our AI and machine learning to identify themes in a team or department, participating in key discussions that are driving reactions, and seeing top themes and top conversations. So you can actually see, like, what are the things that are of interest, what is the sentiment, and then, respond to them. So once again, having that transparency, having that clarity, and identifying those things that are important. These are the analytics around the campaigns. So you can see the followers, the people that were reached, people who replied, people who were posted. You can see the reactions, and then the top conversations at the bottom. So it's really a great way for those campaigns that we ran, that we saw earlier, to kind of see how they ended, how they finished, and then maybe share some of those best conversations as part of your event follow-up. And so this is just kind of, as I mentioned earlier, you've got Viva Engage across Microsoft 365. So you've got web, desktop, and mobile. You've got the Viva Engage app in Teams. You've got the Viva Engage app in Outlook. And then you've also got these other options. If you've got a SharePoint intranet, you can actually embed a Viva Engage feed onto that page directly. It's going to be Viva Engage content will be also showcased in Viva Topics if you're using that Viva app as well. So it's really across Microsoft 365. So you're not forcing people to interact with these capabilities in one specific place. All right, I'm 2 minutes late, but we're going to get through these next few slides in 3 minutes, so we have 10 minutes for Q&A. And thank you, Margot, for moderating the questions. You've been doing a fantastic job. All right, so this is meant to be high level, but as we move forward, as I mentioned, we're going to kind of talk about, if you wanted to use Viva Engage in your organization, what are kind of the key things to think about? So as we would do with really any technology service or application that we put in our organization, we really want to think about at the beginning, begin with the end in mind. So how would we measure success? So there's 4 pillars of functionality in Viva Engage. And so it's communities, knowledge. So knowledge is that answers in Viva, self-expression. So that would be our stories and storyline. And then leadership, which is leadership corner. And as I mentioned, for the 2 that have the asterisk, a premium license is required for some of those features. So really understanding, like, what are, from order 1 to 4, what is a priority for your organization for these different capabilities? Determine appropriate goals for usage, so you can get usage reports and analytics on activities. So how many posts, how many communities, your devices. Like we know that for many workers, mobile device engagement is going to be more important than desktop, because maybe they're using it, maybe they're a frontline worker and their mobile device is their primary device for this, or they're using their phone to look at things maybe on a break or at lunch. So understanding how they're using it, when they're using it, is super important. And then also groups. I will note here that I don't view that more is always better. I think that understanding what success looks like for usage in your organization is also important. Because if you have clarity of what you're doing, you might see some reduced usage periodically, simply because people have gotten their questions answered. And so maybe there's a couple of weeks where you're just going to see a little drop because, you had your major events, you've had the questions answered, you've had things coming in. So it's going to go up and down, but understanding what those goals should be for your organization is important. And so kind of having that indirect impact or direct, but what other organizational metrics might be impacted by deploying Viva Engage? So if you think about the answers in Viva, for example, and I will say that there's Q&A within Viva Engage that does not require the premium license. So if you think about just like having questions answered in general, can you reduce help desk tickets? Can you reduce other sorts of support experiences by the fact that you've got questions being answered in Viva Engage? So I think that's a really important thing to look at over time. Do you have improved employee sentiment? Have you provided clarity through, having leaders post on their storylines to make sure that they understand like what the organization is doing, the direction, decisions and actions being taken? So do you actually have improved employee sentiment, perhaps reduced turnover of employees in your organization? So it's obviously a longer term thing to look at, but to really think about like how would having this sort of solution impact just beyond looking at the usage in the app itself. And then last, obviously always a good thing is just get employee perspective directly from the source. So measuring success, have surveys that you would do ahead of time and periodically to basically understand, how do they view the content that's being posted in Viva Engage? Are they getting value from the leadership storylines? Are they getting value from announcements and communications? And then using those surveys and those answers to then continue to improve over time. So as with any other organization-wide solution, we definitely recommend having, you might choose to informally do like a proof of concept within a small group of people, but like your first, real deployment, we would say have a pilot deployment, have the right stakeholders and participants. For this, we want to make sure that we have a broad representation of organizational groups, roles, or personas, as we would call them, and then other key segments. Sometimes people forget, but there's like generational differences with technology. So making sure you got all of those covered. So just really thinking about the different types of employee segmentation that you would want to include in your pilot to make sure that you get feedback across all of those different perspectives. It's important to invite people that are known to be open to trying new technology experiences. There's going to be people that are always willing to try anything new, and they're great. But even people kind of in the middle are good. We just, for your pilot, it's probably not best to have people that are 100% resistant to change, simply because they're not going to have a great experience. You're not going to have a great experience. And you're probably not going to get the feedback that you're looking for. And then last, for your pilot group, you want to make sure that people will have the time to use it. So, they will have time to post, they'll have time to read, they'll have time to answer questions or ask questions and give you feedback on that experience as part of that pilot deployment. My kind of personal number that I like to go for is 50 to 100 people. You can obviously change the number of people in a pilot group based upon your organization, but that's kind of my starting point because that's a manageable number of people to have a few meetings with, to send surveys, to go through the data. As you start getting larger and beyond that, it just gets a little bit more difficult to manage. But as I mentioned, it's really going to be based upon your needs. And then last, we think it's really important to have champions in your organization. And I do have a note at the top. If you have an existing champions community, it could be Microsoft 365 or just something within like the technology scope or realm. Like you don't need a separate group. Like use those people. So if you have a champions community, even if it's called something else, like use those people. But they are the people that are passionate about what they do, and they're really excited to evangelize the new technology and help their peers learn how to use those things more effectively. To really, have those solutions to business challenges. How do they support their use of Viva Engage in this case? They're going to create enthusiasm as you release it to the organization. They'll have a circle of influence. So they'll be the people posting so that, there's content out there. So obviously the whole premise is people have to post and they have to read in order for this to be valuable to your organization. Your champions are going to bring that new way of working to life. So, having those communities, having those storylines that, they're going to start using those capabilities and sharing it with their peers. And then hopefully that will, bring more people in because those people would be interested in the champions content. They're going to identify challenges and solutions. So if there's things, maybe there's a policy that's needed, maybe there's a different configuration, they're going to bring those to you as the project team responsible for it. And they're just going to provide feedback in general to let you know what's working, what's not working, how you might need to do change management in your organization. And then last, they're going to promote it across their teams. They're going to help their colleagues understand how it works in their day-to-day work, and they'll just build awareness through informal communications channels. So that could be if you're in the office, at the coffee machine, or in their, informal team meeting. So they're going to help you with those like kind of grassroots, as we would call it, efforts of just saying, hey, this is where I'm posting my content now. And I guess my last point before we get into questions would be really, one of the things that we see a lot of is, if you have Microsoft Teams today, you might have your communities in Teams, and, you could make a business case for moving your communities to Viva Engage because A, they can still be in Teams because the Viva Engage app is in Teams. And then second, it kind of reduces the number of teams you have, like for your teamwork, for like the work that you're doing. And so your communities can then be in Viva Engage. And so when you go into Teams every day, I don't know what your experience is, but I probably have at least 50 teams I'm a member of. And if we were to take out all of kind of our legacy communities out of that list, I would probably cut my teams list by half. So I think there's also, a great use case for kind of saying our communities are here, but it does require that conversation, which I will make sure we cover before we end this, but kind of the what to use when, because we're saying, hey, we have this great application, but we also want to make sure we help you use it smartly. But this is a licensing page for those that were interested. And so the premium license is required for the things that you see on the bottom. And then the things that you see above the line are included with your Microsoft 365 license.